Join Alex Cardinale as he discusses America's worst tragedies and emergencies. He will keep it real with you and share all the details about the emergency, how it could have been prevented, what we can learn from it, my thoughts and more. Tragedy can strike at any moment. Whether it's a fire, a medical emergency or a robbery, we should be prepared for it. Learn from these common tragedies. Post your thoughts in the comments. Now here is Alex Cardinale.
Hello everyone, welcome to an all-new series here on Keeping It Real with me, Alex Cardinale. This series is going to be dedicated to some of the worst tragedies and emergencies that happened in the United States of America. This is going to be very similar to my crime show, with the exception that we're not going to be talking about crimes. We're going to be talking about tragedies and emergencies that shocked America, and are tragedies and emergencies that we can learn from to prevent this from happening in the future. So we're going to talk about fires, we're going to talk about car accidents, natural disasters that shocked America and changed the way we think and changed the way we do things. You know, years ago when I was on a podcast, I had a show called the American Tragedy Hour, and it did pretty well. It got a lot of listens. So I figured, you know what? I'm going to bring it back on my YouTube, and we'll do it under my Keeping It Real with Alex Cardinale series on my YouTube channel, the Legendary Alex Cardinale. And I think it's going to do really well right here on my YouTube channel. So I'll be discussing real life tragedies, and I'll discuss everything you need to know about them, including what we can learn from them as a whole, what we can do in the future to prevent future tragedies from happening. I'll share my thoughts and a lot more. To get us started tonight, we're going to talk about a huge propane explosion that happened in West Virginia in a gas station convenience store known as the Little General Convenience Store. This propane explosion changed the lives of 10 people forever. 4 people lost their lives. It was 2 emergency responders and 2 propane technicians that died in the explosion, and 6 others, 4 convenience store employees and 2 more emergency responders, were seriously injured in the explosion. So today, you're going to find out all about the Little General Convenience Store propane explosion that happened in West Virginia. This explosion did not need to happen. It was a human error, and it was a tragedy that occurred because of human error and human negligence. And we're going to find out everything you need to know about this tragedy. So make sure you post your thoughts on the comments. I want to know your thoughts on this horrific tragedy. So having said that, let's go ahead and get started. And here is what to know about the Little General Convenience Store before we get into the day of the actual tragedy. So here we go. Here is some information on the Little General Convenience Store. Now, it was on Flat Top Road in Ghent, West Virginia. So the Little General Convenience Store was located on Flat Top Road in Ghent, West Virginia. It was an old school building, meaning it was a wood-framed building, which is likely why it exploded so easily, because wood burns rather quickly and melts rather quickly as well. So a wood frame building is not going to take long to disintegrate, especially in a big explosion. Now, the little general convenience store was a combination gas station and convenience store because it sold soft drinks, candy, snacks, cigarettes, magazines, of course, gasoline, and it also had a pizza shop inside that sold pizzas cooked in propane fired ovens. And it's that pizzeria that really destroyed this convenience store because of the propane. Now, a 500-pound propane tank was installed on the back wall of the store outside, and that is against country regulations because it's a very dangerous thing to put propane on the back wall because propane can enter the store, in which it did, and it can lead to a ignition, which it did. So in general, in January of 2007, Little General changed propane suppliers and they had a new tank installed. Unfortunately, the technician that was working at Little General on January 30th, 2007 was very new at his job. He was only a propane technician for a month and a half, and he did not realize the signs of danger. And that is the human error that led to this tragedy. Now, before we talk about the tragedy, let's look at a little bit of positive side. Little General convenience stores pride themselves on being a family destination, particularly for food service. And this location on Flat Top Road in Ghent, West Virginia, had a pizzeria inside, just like most Little General convenience stores do. Stores are known for the restaurants and for being a place where families come together for celebrations and events. There are quick service restaurants inside 62 of the stores, in addition to standalone outlets. These include Subway, Arby's, Godfather's Pizza, Krispy Kreme, Sam's Hot Dog Stands, Burger King, Taco Bell, Chester's Chicken, Dunkin' Donuts, Steak Escapes, and a 79er restaurant. The newest stores have a Dunkin' Donuts, and the location in Ghent, West Virginia, had a pizzeria. So that's what you should know about the Little General convenience store in Ghent, West Virginia. Its last day of existence was January 30th, 2007. Now let's learn about the day of the tragedy and what happened. A very tragic event that forever changed the lives of 10 people. So, on January 30th, 2007, a propane explosion at the Little General store in Ghent, West Virginia, killed two emergency responders and two propane service technicians and seriously injured six others. The explosion leveled the store, destroyed a responding ambulance, and damaged other nearby vehicles. On the day of the incident, a junior propane service technician employed by Appalachian Heating was preparing to transfer liquid propane from a existing tank owned by Feral Gas to a newly installed replacement tank. The existing tank was installed in 1994, directly next to the store's exterior back wall, in violation of West Virginia and United States Occupational Safety and Health Administration regulations. When the technician removed the plug from the existing tank's liquid withdrawal valve, liquid propane unexpectedly released. For guidance, he called his supervisor, a lead technician who was off-site delivering propane. During this time, propane continued releasing, forming a dangerous vapor cloud behind the store. The tank's placement next to the exterior wall and beneath the open roof overhang provided a direct path for propane to enter the store. About 15 minutes after the release began, the junior technician called 911. A captain from the Ghent Volunteer Fire Department subsequently arrived and ordered the business to close. Little General employees closed the store but remained inside. Additional emergency responders and the lead technician also arrived at the scene. Witnesses reported seeing two responders and the two technicians in the area of the tank, likely inside the propane vapor cloud, minutes before the explosion. When emergency responders arrived, a firefighter was sent to evacuate everyone out of the store, but it was way too late. Seconds before he could get in the store, propane ignited and caused the explosion. Minutes after the emergency responders and the lead technician arrived, the propane inside the building ignited. The resulting explosion killed the propane service technicians and two emergency responders who were near the tank. The blast also severely injured four store employees inside the building, as well as two other emergency responders outside the store. The blast leveled the store, causing it to go missing and completely eviscerate. There was no more building because of the propane explosion. It was gone. So it caused a lot of damage. On top of that, both propane tanks flew at least 50 feet away from the scene. The dead included two emergency responders, a fire department captain, and an emergency medical technician, EMT or ambulance driver, both from the Ghent Volunteer Fire Department, and the two Appalachian Heating Propane Service technicians. The injured included the four Little General employees who remained inside the store. Luckily, they survived. I can't imagine being inside a building that's about to explode. That must be really scary. And two other Ghent Volunteer Fire Department emergency responders. So here is the time frame of what actually happened. We know what happened. Now let's learn about the time frame. So at 9 o'clock, the two propane technicians arrive at Little General Convenience Store. The plan for the day is to safely install a new propane tank while also taking the existing propane from the existing tank and safely transferring it to the new tank. For whatever reason, the lead technician left to go deliver propane somewhere else, leaving the immature, well, not immature as in badly behaved, but immature as in not being fully aware and not being experienced enough to do a job on its own. So leaving a junior technician to complete such a dangerous job alone, which was very, very dangerous, and it had serious consequences. So once the lead technician left, at about 10:25 a.m., the junior technician, working alone, removed a threaded plug from the liquid withdrawal valve on the feral gas tank and liquid propane began flowing uncontrollably. Because he was not trained, he did not know to shut the valve and did not know that he could not transport the propane because the propane tank was damaged. He did not know that, so this tragedy occurred. Unfortunately, had the lead technician done the job, this would have never occurred because the lead technician would have known that the valve was malfunctioned because of old age. But anyway, once the junior technician opened the valve, liquid propane sprayed upward against the roof overhang, and dense propane gas acclimated at ground level around the tank and the foundation of the building. And that is extremely dangerous because it could cause not only explosions, but asphyxiation and suffocation, as well as frostbite and cold burns. So over the next 25 minutes, the escaping propane entered the little general store through openings in the roof overhang, and employees and customers began reporting smells of propane, and they began worrying. Shortly after the release began, the junior technician called the lead technician to report the release and seek guidance. At 10:40 a.m., the junior technician called 911 to report the emergency and summon help. Unfortunately, on the 911 call, the junior technician did not know enough to relay how serious the situation was. The junior technician only told the 911 operator that there was a propane leak. Had the junior technician known that there was a vapor cloud, the emergency services would have known and they would have rushed to the scene. They would have secured the scene, got everyone out, and possibly could have prevented this tragedy, or at least prevented anybody from dying. A captain and two emergency medical technicians from the Ghent Volunteer Fire Department were the first to arrive, followed by the lead technician and two other emergency responders. Now, during this time, the junior technician was being served, uh, was being helped by the EMTs for breathing issues because of the propane and frostbite cold burns because of the propane. So shortly after emergency response arrived and the lead technician arrived, the propane in the store ignited, leveling the store and killing two emergency responders, the fire captain and one of the emergency medical technicians, and the two Appalachian heating propane service technicians. They lost their lives because of negligence by the Appalachian Heating Company, because the employer did not make sure that the people that were working at the scene were trained enough. It's actually the responsibility of the lead technician. He was so worried about delivering propane everywhere else that this happened and he lost his life, as well as his junior technician. So, here is what we can learn from this case. The following causes were found: the feral gas inspection and audit program did not identify the tank location as a hazard, and it certainly was very hazardous because of what happened. The propane gas got into the building, it acclimated to dangerous levels, and then exploded. Consequently, the tank remained against the building for more than 10 years. They certainly had enough time to move the tank. Appalachian Heating did not formally train the junior technician, and on the day of the incident, he was working alone, which is a big no-no because of things like this will happen. If you send someone out there that does not know what they're doing or has not been trained properly to know what they're doing, things like this are going to happen. That is negligence and human error. The human error is on the part of the junior technician who sadly made a mistake because he was not trained on what to do properly in situations like this. And the third thing that was the cause was that emergency responders were not trained to recognize the need for immediate evacuation during liquid propane releases. Had the first responders evacuated the building as soon as they arrived, this could have been a little bit different. There might have been no injuries and no death. And if the technicians and the emergency responders backed away from the propane tanks, they could have at least lived with injuries instead of losing their lives. So here are some of the key findings of this case. The propane service technicians, emergency responders, and store employees did not evacuate the area as recommended by nationally accepted guidance for propane emergencies. A defect in the existing tank's liquid withdrawal valve caused it to malfunction and remain in an open position, which allowed gas to escape and acclimate in dangerous quantities. And that led to the explosion. The junior propane service technician who was servicing the tank on the day of the incident had no formal training and did not recognize the defect in the withdrawal valve. He also did not know the severity of the emergency. And had he known the severity, this store could still have been open and no one would have lost their lives. He was also working unsupervised, even though he had been on the job for only 1.5 months. And lastly, the placement of the 500-gallon propane tank against the building's exterior black wall provided releasing propane a direct path into the store's interior, which only accelerated the explosion and caused it to be much bigger than it should have been. And that is what happened at the Little General convenience store in Ghent, West Virginia. Perhaps one of the greatest propane explosions in the United States of America. Propane is deadly, ladies and gentlemen. Propane kills. Be very careful when working with propane. Only hire people that know propane and people that are really certified in being propane technicians so that this does not happen at your store. A lot of pizzerias rely on propane. A lot of bakeries rely on propane. So if you're thinking about opening a pizzeria or a bakery or any restaurant and you want to use a propane grill or oven, take notes of what happened at the Little General convenience store. Do not, and I repeat, do not ever put propane on the back wall outside your building because if a valve malfunctions, all that propane is going to go right inside your building. It's going to build up and it's going to lead to an explosion, and there could be a repeat of what happened on January 30th, 2007. So, here are my thoughts on this horrific tragedy. Number one, this tragedy happened because of human error. And unfortunately, it was human error on the junior technician. It was not his fault. He did not know what he was doing. He did not recognize the severity of the emergency and the situation he was in. Why? Well, he was not trained to know. If he had gone through training, he would have realized he needed to shut the valve instantly. But unfortunately, he did not realize what he was doing. Also, as I mentioned earlier, in the 911 call, he simply told the 911 dispatcher, I've got a propane leak. I need 911 here. What he did not relay to the 911 operator was that the propane gas had formed a vapor cloud and it was accumulating quickly. Had 911 known that, they would have told them to evacuate the store and get 500 feet or more away from the building, and everybody likely would have either survived or had small injuries, but the building probably would have still exploded. So, human error is definitely a huge part of this. Negligence. Negligence on the owner of the gas station and convenience store for not moving the propane tank, even though they knew it was a safety violation and a safety hazard. Negligence on all of the propane service companies for allowing the tank to sit there. And they all knew the dangers, but they did not act on those dangers. I always end my crime shows with the saying, if you see something, say something. If you see something bad, do something. That could have saved the little general convenience store had a propane technician inform the owner, hey, look, this is very dangerous. I am recommending you move this propane tank or we will no longer service you. That would have likely convinced the owner of the gas station convenience store to move the propane tank and in a safe location. But very, very sad. And also delayed timing by the firefighters. When the firefighter captain decided to evacuate, it was way too late. It was 10 minutes after arriving at the scene. And if he had done it quicker, no one would have got injured, or possibly the severity of the injuries would have been less than what they were. And if the technicians and the firefighters that lost their lives had backed away from the building, they may have survived. But all in all, it is a horrific tragedy. I cannot fathom what any of the victims' families were thinking about this case. I cannot fathom their thoughts. So my thoughts and prayers go out to the two technicians and the emergency responders that lost their lives in this horrific tragedy. Really, the blame ought to go to their employers because the junior technician was not trained properly and he did not realize the danger of propane and what can happen. And also, although the lead technician lost his life, I feel he has a huge responsibility in what happened because he left the scene and he left it to someone that did not know what they were doing. So, even though it's his fault, I feel terrible he lost his life. And no one should ever lose their life like that. So, my thoughts and prayers go to the four people that lost their lives many years ago. Let's give a moment of silence to the four people, the two responders, and the two technicians that lost their life in 2007. All right. Thank you for joining me for that moment of silence. And I'm sorry to the victims' family that their loved ones are no longer with us to talk about this tragedy. So, the last thing I want to talk about for today's show is the dangers of propane. Propane is dangerous. We use propane to cook on the grill, we use propane to cook at restaurants. But propane has a lot of uses, but it is extremely dangerous to humans. And here is why propane is dangerous. Propane is a gas normally compressed and stored as a liquid. It is non toxic, colorless, and virtually odorless. An identifying order is added so it can be detected. It is also known as liquefied petroleum gas, or LPG. Propane is commonly used for heating, cooking, and fuel. Its applications are rapidly growing due to new technology developments. Propane is considered a clean fuel. Propane is a asphyxiant, meaning very high concentrations of the gas can cause suffocation. Exposure to high concentrations can also cause cardiac arrest, unconsciousness, or seizures. Sustained contact with the skin can cause frostbite, and that is what happened to the junior technician. It is a extremely flammable gas. It is stored under pressure as a gas and can explode if heated. It can be a confined space hazard as it is a asphyxiant gas and acclimates in low-lying areas. In high concentrations, propane displaces oxygen and is an asphyxiant gas. It causes suffocation if allowed to acclimate to concentrations that reduce oxygen below safe breathing levels. Breathing of high concentrations may cause dizziness, lightheadedness, headache, nausea, and loss of coordination. Continued inhalation may result in unconsciousness. Asphyxiation may bring about unconsciousness without warning and so rapidly that the victim may be unable to protect themselves. Exposure to rapidly expanded gas or vaporizing liquid may cause frostbite, also known as cold burn, and that is really painful. So I know Memorial Day weekend is coming up next weekend, and we're going to be firing up those propane grills. Be very careful when working with those propane grills. Make sure there is enough propane to safely use the grill. Make sure you turn the gas off after you're done cooking on the grill. Never leave the gas on if you're done cooking and forget to shut it off because that could lead to an explosion. Never use a empty propane tank and never turn it on because that can lead to an explosion. So stay safe when grilling using propane. All right, and that is our very first episode of Keeping It Real with Alex Cardinale, Tragedy and Emergencies that shocked America. I hope you learned some information on this show, and I hope you'll prevent future propane accidents. This is a really good show that I figured I would do, and I'm glad I did it. I had a lot of fun talking about this, even though it's a very tragic and sad topic. Our next tragedy is going to be the explosion and deadly fire at a nightclub in Rhode Island. I forgot the name of the fire, but it was a very deadly fire. It was a nightclub fire in Rhode Island. We're going to talk about that. A lot of people lost their lives. So, on the next tragedy show, we'll talk about a fire that shocked America and in Rhode Island. A lot of people lost their lives in a very horrific event. It happened inside a small bar, and a lot of people were trampled on. A lot of people burned to death. Just a really tragic and horrible way to go in a really bad fire. And because of that event, a lot of fire safety was reevaluated and put into place. All right, guys. Thank you guys for watching this video. If you enjoyed it, please make sure to subscribe to my YouTube channel. the legendary Alex Cardinale. Check out my upcoming episodes of American Tragedy Hour on Keeping It Real with Alex Cardinale. Check out my crime shows, my fish keeping shows, my cooking and baking shows, my pro wrestling shows, and more. Thank you guys for watching. If you're a new subscriber, hit that like button and subscribe to this channel. Have a great rest of your day. Thank you for watching, and stay safe, everybody. Ted Hood! Sergeant Alex Cardinale here, inviting you to be a part of the inaugural Memorial Day 2022 Bash, hosted by me, Sergeant Alex Cardinale. The inaugural Memorial Day Bash airs live Monday, May 30th, 2022 at 9 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Pacific, right here on my YouTube channel, the legendary Alex Cardinale. The 2022 Memorial Day Bash is being hosted by me, Sergeant Alex Cardinale. And on the Memorial Day 2022 Bash, I will discuss the history of Memorial Day, and I will discuss why we celebrate Memorial Day. We're going to pay our respects to all the brave men and women out there fighting for us and this great country. USA! USA! Also on the inaugural Memorial Day Bash, I am going to address the veterans. Yes, that's right, Sergeant Alex Cardinale is going to address the veterans. We're also going to have a very special guest. That's right, we're going to have a very special guest. Former Army member James Anthony will be our very first guest for the first time ever on a holiday bash. That's going to be incredible. So we're going to speak to a former Army member as we pay our respects to the United States of America men and women who serve in our Army and in our military. There's also going to be an appearance by Chef Alex Cardinale, and Chef Alex is going to give you the best recipes to make for the veterans in your life. There'll also be an appearance by Aqua Alex, and Aqua Alex will talk about how fish tanks can help veterans. And if Chef Alex and Aqua Alex don't do the right thing, I'm going to have to put them in the camel clutch and the cobra clutch. Maggots! So the inaugural Memorial Day 2022 Bash goes down live Monday, May 30th, 2022, live 9 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Pacific, on my YouTube channel, the legendary Alex Cardinale. Come join me as we pay our respects to the United States military men and women, all those who serve, past or present. Don't be a maggot. Be there and be square, and let's pay respect to all the great military men and women. And that's an order. You're all dismissed.